Hi, this is Bill Joyce, and I'm the broker at Charter Home in Sacramento and a blogger at survivingtheamericandream.org. While I'm an advocate for home ownership in general, I've seen the kind of pain and suffering a poor home choice can have on a family's finances, marriage, health, and overall happiness. I believe the oversold and underdefined image of dream home encourages people to spend far too much money for the wrong kinds of things. Buying a house doesn't get you the life you imagine, or the time to live it, any more than joining a gym will make you fit. It takes discipline and effort to create the things you dream of. You can't simply buy them. Join me while I interview experts in various fields like financial planning, marriage and family therapy, career counselors, life coaches, as well as happy and unhappy homeowners willing to share their hard-earned wisdom. Today's interview is with Becky Wolfe, a physician's assistant and mom from Ohio who has a blog at frametofreedom.com. She shares her journey of managing a young family's finances, eliminating debt, buying and owning her own home, and building wealth with real estate. Becky is very open about her experiences in budgeting, home buying, and buying income properties. Why don't we start with just a little bit about you and your background and what it is you do?
Okay. So first of all, I have a husband, I have 2 kids, and I'm working part-time as a physician assistant. I've been a physician assistant for 10 years. I currently work in urgent care. I actually bought my first home before my husband and I got married. I was 24 and had been renting and decided I just wanted to jump in and buy a home. And I looked around the market for a while. I had no idea what I was even doing. So I just kind of went off the advice from my parents and decided to buy a home on a 30-year mortgage and just jumped right in. And it wasn't until a couple of years later that I met my husband, and he had a lot more financial knowledge than I did. But he had actually owned a home also, but we decided to live in my home that I purchased before we got married and rent his out. And that was our first real rental that we had as a couple, just because we had an extra home. We didn't really want to sell it, but the market wasn't good enough to sell it at that time. I mean, he would have lost a significant amount of money. So we decided to just go ahead and start our rental business at that time. And that was in 2011 when we started that.
When you purchased it, 24, that's pretty young to be buying a house.
Yeah.
Did you, from that experience, is there something that you would share with young home buyers that you would say, here's what I did right and here's what I did wrong, perhaps?
Yes. So the first thing that I would want to make people aware of is that there are so many different mortgages and different types of interest that you'll come, in contact with. So basically there's an adjustable rate mortgage and a fixed rate mortgage. And what I was always taught by my parents is to always go with a fixed rate mortgage, which I was really glad that I did. But one thing that I would encourage people to do is actually go for a 15-year mortgage, because there's so much interest that you're paying if you go on a 30-year mortgage, a longer-term loan. And that was actually one thing that my husband taught me, because growing up with your parents, you just come from one financial background. You're learning what they're learning. And at least that was my experience. So when Greg and I got married, he actually was like, why are you on a 30-year mortgage? Why didn't you do a 15? Nobody had ever talked to me about a 15-year mortgage. I didn't even know that was possible. It was nothing that was ever brought up before. So I wasn't really educated on the process. Luckily, I bought a house in a good neighborhood. The school system's, pretty good in the area, and actually bought a foreclosed home. And I didn't even know much about foreclosures at the time. I didn't know anything about the real estate market. But I would encourage people to really look at where they're buying, look at the neighborhood, look at the school system, look at how much taxes are. We've learned so much. Honestly, I've learned so much since we've had our real estate business that I'm like, when people are going to buy a home, and with my husband, we have friends that come to ask us, to ask us advice, because we've, bought several homes now. But the things we tell them is, make sure if you can afford it on a 15-year mortgage, do it. That would be the first thing, because you'll notice that your payment gets knocked down significantly by doing that. And you'll save so much money on interest by doing that.
Choosing or at that time, and one of the challenges of using a 15-year mortgage is people seem to want as much house as they can get, and you can get more house if you're willing, because it lowers the payment, and then they're Their
Right.
payment to income ratio allows them to borrow more. So you can get a
Yeah.
nicer house if you go for the
Right.
30 years. What would you say to that?
So the biggest thing that I would tell people now, knowing what I know now, is that the house is just a house. What do you want for your life ultimately? Like, do you want to be stuck in that payment, or do you want to live, a life of having more freedom? Can you, travel more, be with your kids more, not have to work as hard? And that was something I had even no idea. At 24, I really was young in my life. I was just coming out of college, really. And I was like, people don't understand that there's so much more to life. Are you planning on having a family? Do you want to be there at kids' activities? There's so much more than just your house. So having your understanding of that you have more to life than just being stuck in a payment is something that I would really encourage people to understand.
I think, and I picked that up from your blog, that sense of things, and it's I have found as a broker that's when you are in home shopping mode, you're in shopping for a house frame of mind.
Right.
Keeping the context of the rest of your life in balance with this is hard to do because when you look at the house you could buy if you borrow as much as possible and go for 30 years versus staying well within your means and doing 15 years, it feels disappointing. It feels like, is this the best we can do? Is that sense that you have, and this is it I've found at all price ranges, or up to, at least in California, up to $1 million or so. I mean, that guy looking for $1 million house and thinks, we could pare this back and do an $800,000 house, and it's just disappointing. And so it's not just for first-time buyers. It seems to be a comparison when if you actually look at what you can get, if you're willing to stretch. And you're saying, be careful stretching and keep your life, in balance.
Right. It is so much more important to have balance than it is to have keeping up with the Joneses with our homes. It really is. It's just more important to have that financial balance because you have less stress overall. And it's like a key to realizing that. And it's extremely hard when you're going to look for a home because you're like, oh, this house is already done, or versus this house needs a lot of work. But the equity that you have from buying a foreclosed property, for example, and being able to build it up and actually having value in that home right away is so much better than having to buy something that there's going to actually be a decline in your home price if you go to sell it in 3 years.
And so that is a risk that everyone should know that happens in real estate is even though long term it always goes up, and arguably because the dollar goes down essentially. I mean, it's just keeping pace with inflation. It goes through those up and down cycles. And when did you buy that home?
I bought that home in 2008. 2009. So sorry, no, it was March 2009 when I bought my first home.
So that home in value continued to drop for a period of time after you purchased.
Yep,
is that correct?
Shortly after it did, yes.
Okay. Yeah, it was things were still dropping.
Yes.
Do you still own that? You live there now?
I do.
Okay.
We still live here.
Okay. And you're back in the money on that one.
Yes, we've actually we've gone up pretty significantly now.
Okay. So your experience in real estate is actually the buying and owning and renting properties of your own, correct?
Correct, yes.
Are you aware of tools that would help a home buyer prepare for a purchase? Or what kind of tools do you use when you're evaluating a home?
So we actually use a website called Zillow. So Zillow gives us a lot of information about a home or about the neighborhood. So we can tell the school systems, we can tell generally, what houses have sold for within the past couple of years. There's a recently sold tab that we go to kind of compare the price of the house that we're looking at compared to other homes in the area. So Zillow is one of the big things we use. We can look at the taxes. There's a mortgage calculator on there, so you can kind of generally figure out your mortgage. You can look at the taxes and divide that by 12 to kind of figure out what it would be included with your mortgage payment. So that's the big site that we use. We also go to our local county auditor site to see if there's, sometimes we can see improvements on the home and get the assessed value on it. We can see if it's a bank-owned property, going it that way as well.
Okay, so each county will have
Hmm.
a website with public records available online, and you can see if something, what the taxes currently are, what the assessed value of it is, if it's
Correct.
if they're behind on taxes, that sort of thing.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Do you use any financial tools for evaluating a property or budgeting or?
So we do a couple of different things. We use there's a site that we use as like a real estate investor. It's called Bigger Pockets. And we use that site actually to see what the rental value would be, how much our investment would be, how much we would have to use, or how much money we would have to set aside for, it's called CapEx or capital expenditures, which means if you have to fix up the home. We kind of get general information from there. We've been doing it for a few years now, so we kind of understand how much we're going to need per home, and it varies. But we generally come up with an amount we want to save for each home in order to make improvements each year.
And how many properties do you own at this point?
We have 6. We have a couple of duplexes, and then the rest are single-family homes.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and 6 since 2011.
Yep, we've actually done some other transactions as well. We've probably done, it's been around 10 properties. We've actually sold a couple in that time, and we bought a house at auction. So we actually just reassigned our bid to someone else because it wasn't what we wanted.
So you actually went down to the county courthouse and did the whole
Mm-hmm.
foreclosure auction.
Yep, we did a tax foreclosure auction, and that was last year in November.
That's pretty gutsy.
Yeah, it is kind of gutsy.
I've been to the auctions, and those are people with, and some of them have stacks of cashier's checks at all different amounts, just ready
Mm-hmm.
to go so they can buy properties. It's
Right. Yeah.
and that's not for the faint of heart. That's generally for experienced pros.
Right.
So what was that breakthrough for you with it, where you started seeing real estate as an opportunity to build wealth?
So in 2014, so actually kind of going back a little bit, 2012, my husband and I really started looking at it as more of a medium to build wealth. And he had done more research on it. He had a couple of friends that he had known for years that had been doing some real estate investing. Well, in 2012, he kind of talked to me about it generally. I think we should buy more houses. We had rented his house out for a little while. We've, done okay with it. My biggest fears were if something big was going to go wrong. We needed to fix a roof, or we needed to fix windows. We didn't have the cash to be able to do it. And he kind of showed me that, this is the way other people do it. They kind of save as they go. That way they have extra money in case they need to fix something up. And since it was his house, he's like, honey, he's like, I already know I fixed the windows. He's like, those are already fixed. The roof is fine. So he kind of eased my mind a little bit that that one was okay. So we started to look for our next property. And at that time, we found a property that one of the people at the bank actually had mentioned to us. It was like one of the loan officers. We were just kind of casually mentioning to them that we were interested in buying another property. And she had mentioned to us there had been a property on the MLS that for a couple of years, it had been almost 2 years. And she said it was a really nice property. They couldn't get an FHA loan. Somebody had come in to try to get an FHA, but it couldn't go through because of a shed that was, I guess, kind of dilapidated. So they said the FHA wouldn't go ahead and approve it. So I looked at the house, and my husband looked at it a couple of days later because he was out of town. And didn't need a whole lot of work. It was more cosmetic. We had a friend come with us who was a contractor, and he was able to look at the home just generally. He said the shed I would get rid of. He's like, beyond that, the house is fine. So we went and we went in with an offer, and it was a private seller who was just trying to get rid of the home. And they wanted around $43,000. I think they had lowered the price from $50,000 to $43,000, and we actually came in with an offer of $27,500, which was accepted. So we were like, okay, this is great. We knew this was school system. We knew the area. We knew that the house would always be worth more than $27,000. So that was our next investment. And then from there, we kind of took a little break. We were trying to figure
Let
out,
me
what.
let me just stop you for a second. So you bought a
Sure.
property for $27,000. What are you renting that out now currently?
So we rent it out now for $700 per month, and we've
Wow.
kept it the same. Yeah.
You can't. Well, I don't know that you can do that in California.
Probably not. Ohio's a little different.
Yeah. People should consider going to Ohio or perhaps smaller markets where that still opportunities like that exist. I mean, you were aggressive in they wanted 43 and you offered 27. Is that what you had said?
Yeah.
And
We
they
actually came
accepted
in.
it.
We just we were figuring out was all what we wanted to afford at the time. We really didn't want to, stress ourselves out financially with having to pay more for it, and we knew there were going to be some updates, so that we just thought, we're going to offer it. If they don't accept it, we can walk away. So
Right.
it just ended up working out.
So, and you've purchased properties since. Would you,
Yeah.
as your advice to people would be to buy income property, to do what you're doing as a way to build wealth. You're having success at that.
We are, and I know it's not for everybody. And the turning point for us really was in 2014. Even though we had started buying properties in 2012, we hadn't really set up a budget, and that was one of the things that I would really stress to people now too, is coming up with a solid budget. Because even though we were buying, that property, and we bought another one in 2013, we really weren't spending our money in a way that was that really brought us to the future that we had envisioned. So we envisioned this future of having, time to spend with our kids, being able to be at all the sporting events, and being able to travel if we want to. And we had a ton of debt, and we were basically paying our credit card off every month, but not having anything to pay towards our debt. So then in 2014, it took us a while to kind of realize this, but we took a trip, just like a family vacation, and went to Virginia and started just talking with some friends. And they had started talking about the Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey, and got us on the track of thinking about budgeting. And that's when things really took off for us, and we really started to pay off our debt. So we went from a negative equity in 2012 of around $50,000 to a now equity of over $500,000, but it's been through real estate. So I think
how much of that was, would you say, debt reduction as opposed to a real estate appreciation?
Well, debt reduction, we had some loans that we had taken out. We had some credit card bills. So just to give you a rough number, we paid off, between cars, 401k loans that we had, credit cards, we paid off probably around $50,000 between all of those kinds of things.
Over a 2-year period of time?
Over 2 years, yeah. Actually, over a 2-year period of time, it's been more around $100,000. If you include if you include the real estate, we've actually paid down a significant amount of money of our real estate debt as well over that time. Being able to just leverage all the money that we're making from real estate, being able to save because we both work, I work part-time, 32 hours a week, and my husband still works full-time. So we still make a decent living by our jobs when we have the real estate on the side.
And you made a significant commitment to bringing that debt down. You were living then for a number of years.
Yes.
The debt was allowed to either exist or grow. And then in 2012, you said, we're going to change this. We're going to get rid of that, and aggressively started to pay it down. So you aggressively cut your spending in order to have the money to do that. You stopped spending money on what kinds of things? What did you cut out?
So we were using our credit card basically to pay towards everything, to pay all of our bills that we could pay, and any updates we were doing on the homes, we would use our credit card, but we were then having to pay that off every month. So it would be nothing for us to have a $5,000 payment to the credit card, but then we would have nothing left over. So in order to make it till the next month, we were living on that credit card again. So this vicious cycle that we kept paying on our credit card. And then in 2014, in October, we decided we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to use cash for everything. We're getting our credit card paid off. And we really started following a very strict budget. And we have been. And since then, I've changed jobs, and I make a lot more than I did before. So it kind of helps with our budget and really getting our debt paid off, because we still follow that strict budget and we're not going above it, but we have extra income that we're putting towards our debt.
And you didn't used to have that strict of a budget. This was a
No.
breakthrough, financial
Yes.
breakthrough for you.
Yes, and we just kept accumulating. We were trying to grow our real estate business by taking out 401k loans or by taking out other bank loans that we were able to, and we didn't understand what the mentality is. We had to pay off like the debt, and we got rid of our car loans. We don't have a loan on our car anymore. So those are the things that really can start the debt snowball process very quickly if you don't have any other big, payments to make each month.
How many kids do you have?
I have two.
You have two kids, and you're living in the same place you bought when you were single and 24.
Yes.
Family of four.
Yeah.
Was it just a really big place for a 24-year-old woman, or is it a little snug at times?
Well, it's a 2,000 square foot home, and I have 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms.
Wow.
And we've since finished the basement, but yeah. So.
You bought a big
But
house
again, I
when
live in Ohio.
you were young.
But I live in Ohio, because it's a foreclosed home, so that's why.
Wow, that's pretty good though. That you know, and staying. How many years now? When did you buy that house? You said 2009.
2009, March 2009.
Okay, and you're staying there. Any plans to move, or you're settled in for the long haul?
We consider it sometimes. The only thing that we would want differently is to have like a 4-bedroom home. So we have visitors. My husband's sister lives in California, actually. And she comes and visits occasionally. So it'd be nice. My parents live in Pennsylvania, so it'd be nice to have like a little extra spot. But we wouldn't really consider paying a lot more. And we have a lot of equity in our home that we could put down as a down payment. But we just we're comfortable where we're at right now. We like our neighborhood. And if we moved, it would have to be a really good deal.
Mm-hmm. And you would rent your house out. You would keep it as part of the.
Honestly, because of the way our homeowners association is, we would not be able to do that.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that would be difficult to rent it as an income property.
Yeah.
Okay. How would you, if you had a friend come to you looking for some advice, how would you guide them in terms of what they should spend for a home and how they should finance it?
So usually when we have friends come to us, the thing that changed our lives in 2014 is when our friends really kind of sat down with us and they started talking about their budget, and they were very open about their finances. So we generally are with our friends too, and when they come to us and they say, we really want to buy a home, but we're not sure how much we can afford, we generally will sit down with them and say, okay, do you mind sharing your finances with us? And usually they say no. They want to know that they can handle and afford something that's not going to be a constraint for them. And so we usually sit down with them, we go to Zillow, and we say, okay, do you have a specific neighborhood you're looking in? And we kind of get an idea which school system they want. We can kind of help them since we know the area. And then we say, okay, like this is, what you're bringing home, and this would be your expected payment. Do you think that would be okay for you? And they'll say, well, it seems like a little bit more than what I want to spend, or, I think I could handle that. Then we say, okay, this is what the taxes would be. And generally, because we've had, a few homes, we can say, like, the insurance is X amount of dollars per year, and you're going to be paying that monthly. Does it still look okay? And they would kind of give us an idea of whether or not that would be something that they could handle or not. But we usually will say something along the lines of, keep in mind that there are things that are going to be coming up in your life that you're not expecting right now. There may be, if you own a home, if you're a homeowner, there are going to be things that come up, like your water heater is going to go out, or, your roof may need fixed. Are you going to have money to fix that? How are you going to save for that? How are you going to put that in your budget? So they are aware, and this is something I didn't know when I was 24. I'm like, I didn't have any clue that I would have to take care of my home. Like, I thought, everything was just fine. The carpet was new. All the cosmetic stuff was taken care of. So I wasn't really budgeting in anything like an air conditioning or a roof or windows or anything like that. So once you sit down with them and they understand that there's a bigger picture, that they actually have to put the money into their home if they've been renting forever, that they kind of get a better understanding of they have to save money to take care of their home as well.
You would throw out a number and help them calculate what a total monthly expense would likely be at different price points. And lenders will do that on affordability, which is really how much, lendability, how much they're willing to lend based on ratios. Do you have suggestions for people with some ratios? How much of their income do you think can go towards their home with all expenses included and still have the rest of their life?
We don't typically give like a ratio, like a percentage. I feel like it's more personal if you talk to the person about the numbers, like specifically. I guess if I like had to throw out a ratio, I know like the bank will say like if your debt to income ratio can be like 40 or 45%, but that's like a crazy amount to me. It just seems so high. Especially with people don't understand that they should want to get their debt paid off. That way they have more cash flow coming in. But I would say it's like no more than like 20% of what you're actually bringing home.
Of what you're bringing home, not just 20% of gross, but 20% of take home. Okay.
Right. I think that's a reasonable amount, especially like if somebody's bringing home and this is especially like a single person, like kind of keep in mind that if you're single, if you have kids, if your kids are going to need stuff, you're going to need stuff that you have to be able to a certain amount for.
Right. Well, that's the affordability topic is a big one, and that's something I want to get advice from a lot of different people, because so few people make that choice with balance. They go to a bank and say, what can I afford? And the bank will tell them what they'll lend, which is crazy. It's full debt to income in the 40s, and so, and they don't. It's not their decision to make for you not to be house poor. If you want to be house poor, fine, we'll lend you the money. They're just worried about failure rates. So, if you're going to put 20% down, we won't make you pay for mortgage insurance. But if you're going to not put 20% down, then we'll make you pay for mortgage insurance too, and we're willing to take the chance.
Right.
But that's a whole different conversation than how much can I afford and still have a life with balance to it. And very few people are getting that kind of guidance, in my opinion.
Right, I agree. I completely agree.
I'd like to find out a little bit more about what you do and your blog and where you're going with that.
Sure. So I actually started my blog last year in December 2015, and it was a way, like my husband and I came up with the name Frame to Freedom. But we were in the grocery store talking about basically our new journey towards becoming debt-free. And he said, what we should do? We should get like a frame, and we should put every financial accomplishment that we have in our frame and keep it in our office as a way for us to kind of keep ourselves accountable. So every time we would pay something off, or we have like a significant payment we would put towards something, we would put it in our frame so we could look at it every day. It was a way, like a vision board for us. It was a way for us to keep each other accountable also to getting our debt paid off. So then we just kind of came up with the idea of starting a blog to kind of inspire other people to become debt-free, because it's more than just the money. It's more of the life you can live without having a bunch of debt. So the freedom, the less stress. Our marriage has been better since we actually have this joint venture towards becoming debt-free. So it's more than just the money. It's a lifestyle.
That's interesting. Now, you had quite a bit of debt back in as recent as 2011, when you, or was it 2012 you started to make that commitment. How would you say your relationship has changed with your husband, has changed from that time when you had more debt and were not on this project together to where you're at now? And more specifically about the relationship and how the two of you interact.
So in 2012, that was one of my biggest concerns with starting into real estate. I figured we wouldn't have enough money, and we make a lot of money together, even just with our jobs. But I felt like we didn't know how to spend it, and that was like our biggest issue. And in 2012 is when we started to really do real estate, but we still were kind of struggling. We were kind of just staying afloat. And then 2014 was when we really were like, okay, something has got to change. So we started, that's when we really started our budgeting, and we would meet every week. And we actually, the first thing we did was we calculated all of our expenses from the prior month. We wrote them down. We were trying to figure out ways we could cut our expenses. And then we noticed, like, once we got into doing this, we were looking forward to each budget meeting, and we were looking forward to paying something off. And it was like almost this quality time we got to spend together, and we had the same vision, the same goal. And it was so much less stressful because we were on the same path and we had the same commitment. And it was going from one extreme to us being, I think it was more me stressed out. He was like, it's going to work out. We're going to be fine. And, 2014 until now, it's like we are totally fine. We are on the same page. and we don't fight about money. It's not something that we usually ever fight about now. We are on the same page with it. So it's made our relationship a lot better.
And that's an interesting quality about debt in particular, and money, and a home purchase. The being on the same page and being satisfied and happy with that kind of choice. It really does impact a marriage. It's been my experience, and divorce rates are incredibly high. So to stretch financially and end up with the high debt to income 30-year mortgage is likely to put a strain on any relationship for a number of years.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Interesting. Any closing thoughts that you'd like to share?
Just basically, I just want younger people that are going into homeownership to realize that just keep in mind that the mortgage is likely going to be the biggest expense that you have in your budget. However, make it one that you can reasonably live with, and try to really go after the 15-year mortgage, because if you calculate what you're going to be paying in interest over 30 years, it's going to be more than what the mortgage payment or what the home price is that you're buying, or you're paying all of that in interest. So really just go for the 15-year fixed, and just go for something that's well within your budget, so you don't have that stress within your early family life and marriage.
Becky, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for joining us on the Surviving the American Dream podcast. If you found this helpful, please leave a comment and share with your friends or family, and especially anyone looking to make their home happier.